Hello everyone. Myself Soumya from Department of Civil Engineering. I'm an assistant professor from past 8 years from different organizations, and right now I'm working in BMS College of Engineering. My areas of expertise are engineering mechanics, concrete technology, and steel structures, and many other. So right now, with respect to the subject of today's session, we have the unit 1 based on the introduction of engineering mechanics, that we'll be discussing about the fundamental concepts of engineering mechanics, and further we'll be connecting in the first unit. Further we also connect with some of the fundamentals needed for solving the problems in the further units. So right now in the today's session we'll be discussing about the fundamentals of engineering mechanics. So for today's session I'll be covering the contents like concept of a force, and what are the characteristics of the force, and how do we bifurcate an internal force with an external force, and we have a set of force system and which are all the different types, and what is the principle of transmissibility of force. It is a very commonly adopted principle with respect to the force system, and in continuation we have principle of superposition and law of physical independence, and we have the next topic called idealization of bodies. Like we have 3 basic idealizations. Idealizations are also called assumptions. The 3 idealizations are particle, rigid body, and continuum. And we have one more called point force, which is directly related to particle concept, hence it is not being mentioned over here. So we have next is moment of a force about a point and about an axis, and at the last we will be studying about the concept of couple and what are all the characteristics. So coming to the introduction part, first let us know about what is mechanics, then can be applied to the concept of engineering mechanics. So mechanics is a branch of physical science that is concerned with the state of rest of body, or as a body which is in motion, which is subjected to different action of forces. Even if we stand over on a floor, the weight of us is being given a proper reaction from the floor, so even there a system of force exists. So that is altogether being studied by the physical science, which is coming under the branch called mechanics. So right now in engineering we will be studying about how do we adopt this concept of mechanics into the engineering problems. That is what is being very clearly depicted in the present unit. So when this concept of mechanics, which is going to study the different properties of the body subjected to force system, is applied to solve the engineering problems, then we are going to call it as engineering mechanics. So we have a concept of mechanics will be adopted in different ways. So right now for your first year engineering level, we'll be concentrating only on the mechanics being depicted by a rigid body. So how do we bifurcate the particle or a matter or a body on the earth? We have different classification over that. After that we'll be going to the definition. Engineering mechanics, as I told you, is a study where we will subject the body of any type to different force system. Basically we are going to classify the engineering mechanics into mechanics of rigid bodies, mechanics of deformable bodies, and mechanics of fluids, where we apply the concept of mechanics on rigid body also, and the body which are subjected to deformation once subjected to the force is also being studied in a second branch. And the third one is the mechanics of fluid. That means if I do apply a force on a water body or any other sort of fluids like oil, with respect to the concepts of viscosity, altogether will be studied under the concept called mechanics of fluid. Again in branching, we have in the mechanics of rigid body, we'll be studying about when a body is subjected to a static load. Something like static load means it is a constant with respect to time. With respect to dynamics, we'll be applying a set of load on a body which is rigid in nature with a vibratory, or like we call it as a waveform load, or something which is with respect to time it is going to vary. That kind of load is coming under something called dynamics. And when we come for mechanics of deformable bodies, we study the subject called strength of materials. We call it as SOM in our civil engineering aspect. When we compare to mechanical, they call it as MOM, that is mechanics of material, but altogether the concepts will be same. So when we come for the second subject called theory of elasticity, since the body deforms, the set of forces which are being applied on a body needs to study the elastic property or elastic behavior of that body. Okay, that will be studied under this chapter. And the third one is called theory of plasticity. So if you want to call a material as elastic, as soon as you apply the load, you remove the load, there should be a regaining of its original size and shape. When we compare any body within that elastic limit, the theory of elasticity comes to picture. When it is going to cross that limit of elasticity and it enters the permanent deformation state, we study the concept called theory of elasticity. Coming to the mechanics of fluids, we will be studying about the ideal fluids, some of the assumptions being made on the ideal fluids, and next will be viscous fluids, and the third one will be incompressible fluids. So engineering mechanics means altogether it is called as engineering mechanics, but right now for the first year students we will be concentrating only on the first wing, that is mechanics of rigid body. That too, in that we'll be studying about the statics more, about 4 units, and then the last unit will be touching upon a small concept of dynamics also. Okay, so the rigid body mechanics is basically for a static set of like object which is being subjected to force. So what happens there? It deals with the equilibrium of the bodies and their action of forces, where the body may be either at rest or its motion with the constant velocity. So keeping this logic in mind, we call the concept of mechanics as rigid body mechanics, where what is the definition of rigid body will be further explained. So we will come for the first topic before going to the mechanics and rigid bodies and other things. First, let us define what is the concept of force. Okay, so the definition of concept of force states that it is a tendency which is going to cause the change in any one of the object. Either if you are going to apply any force on an object, it is going to have the tendency to relocate from one location to another location. If there is any change in the location or change in the physical appearance or deformation, any sort of differences do happen with respect to the object, then we can call that tendency which is going to cause that change as force. So the definition is, force is the external agency which tends to change the state of the body or a particle which is applied. So we'll study about the definition of force should have some characteristics. If you want to call a force as a force, it has its own features. The first and foremost characteristic of a force is its magnitude. So magnitude of a force means the intensity in which the force is being applied on any one of the object is called as magnitude. And we have something called point of application. So if you want to define the concept of a second characteristic called point of application, it is a location at which the force is being applied, and if any force is to be applied on an object, it should have a contact between the intensity of the force and the object, and that location is called as point of application. And its line of action, that means the line in which the force is being applied, and it is not exactly the direction of the force, it is coinciding with the direction of the force but not exactly the direction of the force. So its direction is being designated by a value with respect to theta. So the force which is being directed in what angle with respect to the global x-axis, or as we call it as major axis, will be called as its direction. And at last will be its senses. That means what is the sense this force has been creating the body, that is either are we pushing the object or we are pulling the object, is the two types of senses we have at the fifth point. And we have an example diagram with respect to that, where you can see there is an object over here, and this box has to be relocated from this location to the further, either towards right or left. But the thing is, when we want this object to be shifted, I can either apply the load like this to this. That means I am going to apply push force if I have a direction of the force in this way. So this we are going to call it as push. And if at all, if I want to move this object by this side, that means the direction of the arrow is away from the sample, so it is going to be in this direction, then we call it as pull force. So what is the difference between both of them? Both the senses are going to shift this object from this location to the next location. They create the same displacement of the object with the same location, but the only thing is the direction. Even the direction is also same. If I apply the force towards the sample, we call it as push force. and if we apply it away from the sample, we call it as pull force. So those two are the senses we have as a characteristic of a force as a fifth point. And when we come for the magnitude, it should have either some value, something like a 12 kilonewton. That means this block has to be shifted from this location to the further means what is the intensity of force or the pressure, or we call it as any magnitude of the force which is required to push this or else pull this is purely dependent on the intensity. In other words, we call it as magnitude. And as I told you, the line of action. So the line of action is exactly a collinear or a line which is going to pass through the force along with the direction. So you can see this, the direction is designated by theta. Theta is the emblem of showing the force should be directed to what like angle or else what direction. So this theta is going to give us even one more option called what is the direction of line of action also. So line of action is the line along which the intensity of the intensity of the force remains unchanged. Okay. So if this is the magnitude of the force, if at all if it is 12 kilonewton, even here also it will be 12 kilonewton, and even here also it will be 12 kilonewton. So that is what is the role of line of action. And we have magnitude, point of application. So this is the point of application, that is a contact between the force applied and the object is called as point of application. These 5 characteristics altogether is going to define the concept of force. So how do we tell that the force of push and pull will be defined? As I have designated with a arrow, you can see a person who is pushing it. We call this kind of moving, that is the force is being applied towards the sample is called as push, and if it is away from the sample it is called as pull. Moving to the next one. Since we know the concept of force just discussed in the previous slide, we have to decide only external force is not the force which is being acting in the matter of the world. So where external force is what we just now defined in the previous slide. There is something called internal force also. What is meant by internal force? Assume that I have an object, I'm going to apply a load to that. So what is the intensity of load you apply the same way with the same intensity in opposite direction? The object is going to resist the applied force. The resistance offered by the body to the applied external force is called as internal force. So that has been very clearly given in this diagram. You can see this is the object to which there is a force F which is shown as an external force direction is which is moving away from the sample. If at all, if you apply a force which is trying to elongate this object in this way, if this object is having some sort of elasticity, automatically it is going to generate a resistance in opposite direction. How? So force is trying to move it in this direction, whereas the resistance generates in this direction. Again here the force is trying to pull it away, but the material tries to push it inside. So this contraction from here and here and here and here, these are all called as resistance forces or resistive forces. In other words, we call it as internal force. So this is external force. Outside the object we are going to have the external force, and inside we have the resistance offered by the body for the applied load called as internal force. So if we check the cross section of the object, it is x and y. If you elongate it, this cross section will be going to be a smaller one, and this length will be more. I can expect that there is an extension of the material up to here. So this will be an example of a elastic material subjected to external force, where internally there is some response being developed called internal force. So next we come on to the next topic called force system and types of force system. So till now we have discussed about what are all the different forces we have, like what is the characteristic of a force and how the force externally it is different from an internal force or a response force. We have some concept for the force system. Till now we have discussed about a single force which is being acted upon on the body, but if at all a group of forces do act upon on a body, how do they been bifurcated based on the different criteria. Okay, so what is force system? When two or more forces act on a body, they are called to form a system of forces. That means a group of forces acting together on a body is called as system of forces. And how do we bifurcate them or else classify them? Based on the type of plane they are being acted upon and based on the direction in which they are being subjected to altogether. So the force system is majorly divided into coplanar forces and non-coplanar forces. Coplanar force system, non-coplanar force system. The word coplanar designates that the force system is being acted upon on a single plane. For example, assume that I have 5 to 6 pens in my hand. I am going to spread it on a sheet of paper. So the paper designates the x and y direction or x and z direction of the space, like it is not having the third direction. So the spreaded pens, they are only be located either with respect to x axis or y axis. So we call it as they are all lying on the same plane. When we come for the concept of non-coplanar forces, it concludes that even on the space, assume the same set of pens, if they have been thrown on air and given a statue, assume that they have stood still. So I can locate the direction of the pen or location of the pen even in x, y and z direction also. That is called as non-coplanar force system. So again, in coplanar force system, we have something called coplanar concurrent and non-concurrent. Similarly, we have in non-coplanar, we have non-coplanar concurrent and non-coplanar non-concurrent. And that let us discuss with respect to a diagram. Okay. So you can see here, this is called as coplanar concurrent. This boundary line designates that it is assuming to be an x direction and y direction. Then these are all the arrows, I can locate them with respect to x and y coordinates. That is enough for me to locate the location of the arrow. But what happens when we come for this kind of diagrams, non-coplanar concurrent? You can look it over here. We have a set of forces even. I have x direction, y direction and z direction altogether to locate the position and direction of the forces, correct? So these are coplanar concurrent, these are coplanar non-concurrent. So what is the meaning of concurrency? The word concurrency denotes that all the forces have some common meeting point. You can look it over here. Either this arrow may move towards at one point or they are moving away from that point. It doesn't matter whether the force is moving towards the point or away from the point is a different thing. But since they have a common meeting point, either moving towards or away, we call that they are being concurrent at a point. That means they are going to have a common point of meeting for all the force system at one location. We call it as concurrency. Okay. So since they are being coincided at one point for only a sheet of, just like a sheet of paper, spread it out with an arrow, set of arrows. So we can locate them either by x and y direction. So it is called as coplanar concurrent. And in the other way, if we want to just go for coplanar non-concurrent things, so here what happens? We have like set of forces which are going to meet at this point, correct? They are all being meeting at this point. But the thing is, we have the third dimension also to locate that point. So these are non-coplanar, that means they are not on a two plane or same plane, they are in 3 degrees and they are going to meet at one point. So we call it as coplanar non-concurrent, non-coplanar non-concurrent and coplanar concurrent, coplanar non-concurrent, non-coplanar concurrent and non-coplanar non-concurrent. So non-concurrency doesn't demands a definition. Why? Because non-concurrency is nothing but if you spread out the set of forces on a sheet of paper, they are not going to meet at one point. They are being scattered in such a way that by any case they don't have a common meeting point. In that case, we call it as coplanar non-concurrent force system. Similarly, if it happens with a three-dimensional space, as I told you, just throw a set of pen on air and you put a statue to that, they will be dispersed in such a way that they are not going to have a common meeting point. In that case, I call it as non-coplanar non-concurrent force system. So this is a just brief classification they have made, and we can call even the forces are not meeting at a point, but they are parallel to each other, correct? So these are non-coplanar, non-concurrent. They are not going to concurrent at one point, but they are parallel to each other, correct? So in this case, they have the 3 dimension to locate their position, that is non-coplanar, and they are parallel to each other, so we call it as non-coplanar parallel. And you can see in the present diagram, we have all the forces moving downwards. I can call it as non-coplanar like parallel force system. So what is meant by unlike parallel force system? It just looks something like this. These are coplanar parallel, but one force is towards downwards and one is upward direction. So they are not in the same direction. So we call it as coplanar unlike parallel force system, whereas here coplanar like parallel force system. Here we have all are moving downwards, so it is non-coplanar like parallel force system. Since it is in 3 dimension, it has been designated by X, Y and Z. We call it as non-coplanar. So this is how we are going to divide the force system into different categories. So the entire concept can just be very clearly been explained by these examples. In the exam also, if any concept is being asked with respect to force system, more than a statement and more than a explanation, you can just give this classification chart along with these examples that are very clearly going to speak the definition. Okay. So next will be something called principle of transmissibility. So what is meant by principle of transmissibility of forces is the statement says that the force acting on a rigid body at a point can be transmitted along its line of action to any other point without changing the effect of the force on the body. So what's the meaning of that? If I have a line of action of force, along the line of action of force on a body, the effect of the force remains unchanged. Okay, so that is, it is irrespective of the location along the line of action. So you can look at in this diagram, this is a rigid body, especially when the principle of transmissibility of forces has to be applied, it has to be a rigid body. I'll tell you the concept of rigid body, why we have taken so. Assume that there is a force F which is being applied on this object in some direction. Assume this direction is theta and the magnitude of the force is F. This is the magnitude of the force. And this is theta is the direction of the force. So this is going to be applied on the rigid body along some specific line of action. Correct? If I just drop a line through that material or an object or a rigid body, along this line of action of force, if I just chuck the intensity of the force at the other end, that is at this point, the direction and the intensity of the force remains unchanged. That means this is also designated by F and there also it is F. What's the meaning of that? Along the line of action of force, the intensity or else the effect of the force on the body remains unchanged. Correct? So the rigid body is going to just act as a, through these particles which are in continuous distribution of the matter, they are going to shift this load from one particle to another in such a way that even if I chuck the intensity at this point, there is no change in the effect caused by the force on the other end also. So we call it as without changing the effect of the force on the body. So this is called as principle of transmissibility of forces. So next we have the second principle called principle of superposition. So the definition states that the action of a given system of forces on a rigid body will in no way be changed if we add or subtract another system of force in equilibrium from them. So best example is, assume that two children are playing seesaw. You may be like, you might have seen in the parks, the small kids do play the seesaw. So there may be any direction, or one child is some the 20 kilonewton load and another one is 30 kilonewton load. You may expect some inclination in the seesaw. Correct? So that is the location of the, or else that is the intensity location of the two kids with 20 and 30 kilonewton load on a seesaw. So we call it as, already there is a system of forces. if their parents of equal weight, assume this side 50 kilonewton, this side 50 kilonewton, just sit with them to support them, what happens? Even that inclination remains unchanged, because on both the sides you have added a system of forces which is in equilibrium. That means that side you have added 50 kilonewton means on the other side also you have added the 50 kilonewton load. So the direction and the effect of it remains unchanged by adding a system of force, another system of force which is in equilibrium from them. So we can just look it into the diagram. See, this object is being pushed by a person from one side. Assume that he is applying some 10 kilonewton load to pull it, or this is pushing it from this location to further location. And one more friend of him will come and push it from other side with the same 10 kilonewton load. So what is the location of this object now? The location of the object remains unchanged. That means these two set of forces which are in equilibrium are going to act on a body, means the net effect on the object remains unchanged. That is called as principle of superposition of forces. This is what I told you, like seesaw. A kid having the weight of F is sitting in one side, and one more set of kids with weight M and A are sitting on another side. So automatically this seesaw is a straight line. That means it is in equilibrium. So it shows that even one more person will sit here of 50 kilonewton and one more here with 50 kilonewton. Will there be any change in this alignment? No, not at all, because I have added one more system of force which is in equilibrium. What is that extra system of force I have added? It is 50 kilonewton this side and the other side. So even if I assume that it was there, even if I remove that also, this stagnancy remains same, because this is again an equilibrium system which is being deducted. Okay, minus deducted. Okay, so this is about the principle of superposition of forces. Next we have the further third principle of engineering mechanics called physical independence of forces. What is meant by physical independence of forces? If a number of forces are simultaneously acting on a body or an object or a matter, then each one of them will produce the same effect which it would have done while acting alone or independently. In other way, I can tell this statement as, on an object, if number of forces are like acting on simultaneously, each one of the individual force have their own effect being created on the object irrespective of the other forces. That means whatever other forces are doing, that present force doesn't have any change in its effect to cause on the body. They are independent in their own effect being caused on the object. So that is called as principle of physical independence of forces. They feel that they are independent. So you can look at this diagram. F1 force, F2, F3, F4, they are all different forces. And they act upon an object independently, and they do the work in such a way that F3 will do its work on the object or rigid body in such a way that irrespective of what is the effect caused by the other three forces like F1, F2 and F4. So they have an independent effect being created on the object irrespective of what other three are doing. Okay. So that is about the physical independence of forces. So coming to the idealizations. So just previously we have taught about something called principle of transmissibility of forces, principle of physical independence and principle of superposition of forces. Those three principles, some of the concepts, they look like different for a deformable body or on a fluid when it is being applied. So what are the basic idealizations we are supposed to make in order to say the engineering mechanics works on it? They are called as basic idealizations of mechanics. In other words, I can call it as assumptions. What are the assumptions we are supposed to make? These are the four important assumptions we are supposed to keep it in mind when we do the problem solving for the engineering aspects. So the first one is, the first and foremost assumption we are supposed to make is point force. So what is the meaning of point force? Actually, point itself is a assumption, correct? So assume this pen is going to be at the tip of it being kept on my hand, I can say that this pen tip is going to contact the hand at only one point. So point is defined as a dimensionless location. So there is a dimension, no, for the tip of the pen and the palm where it is been in connection. Even in micrometers we have some contact area between this and this. But even then I assume it as it is a point without any dimension. So that is an assumption I make it just to analyze the problem. Some of the assumptions we are supposed to make it in that. Even the point force is also an assumption. Effect of a loading which is assumed to act at a point on a body. Correct? That is called as point force. The second one is, we call it as continuum. What is meant by continuum? It is the assumption that every object in this entire world have the continuous distribution of matter. So what's the meaning of continuous distribution of matter? There is no gap between one particle to another particle. In the entire universe, you take any material, this is going to be followed. But practically it's not so. If you go for any micro nano level of observation of the particles inside the matter, you can see some gap will be there between two particles. But that will be ignored, and so it is called as basic idealization. So what we will do over here, continuum means it's an assumption that every object in the world or universe will have the continuous distribution of matter without any gap in between. So this is one assumption which is required. I'll just connect this to your previous slide called principle of transmissibility of forces, where along the line of action of force, the effect of the force remains unchanged. That means the individual particles will just pass the force from one particle to another particle without deleting its intensity or diminishing its intensity, so that along the line of action, anywhere you chuck the intensity, it remains same. Will it practically, if we just go out of the theoretical aspects and look into that example, it is not true. Why? Because whatever the intensity you give on an object, as soon as it passes from one particle to another particle, there will be a diminishing intensity along the line of action of force, and it will not be same at a point where you chuck it after some distance along the line of action of force. It may not be same, but we assume that it is same. That is because of the basic idealization called continuum. That is, it has the continuous distribution of particle. Obviously, if there is a continuity in distribution of particle without any air gaps, then the force will be transferred from one particle to another particle without adding any extra effect or removing the actual intensity of the force. So that is about the continuum. The third one is called particle. So even the concept of particle is also very much, we call it as like an assumption. Why? If you want to study the solar system, Earth looks like a particle. Is Earth a particle? No, no chance. If you want to draw a projectile or as the path traced by the aeroplane from the first point of elevating and the landing point, so between those 2 points, if you want to write a parabola, will you locate the aircraft with all the wings, gear, everything? No. You will just locate it at that point, correct? So, is the aeroplane a particle? We call it as that particle is at this distance in the parabola. Is the helicopter or aeroplane is a particle? No, no chance. But we assume it as a particle because the engineering problem there to solve is the path traced by the aeroplane, correct? So when the concentration is on the path traced, and it is a very huge data, like huge space, in that the aeroplane looks like a very one small particle. So we assume it just to solve the engineering problem that aeroplane is a particle. And similarly, as I told you, in solar system, I can show the orbits as the dotted line, and in between some of the planets, including Earth and Sun. So Earth is rotating around the object, around the Sun. If I want to locate along the orbit, I just locate the Earth as one circle, a very small circle, or I consider the rotation of the Earth around the Sun as a particle rotation. Is Earth a particle? No. But the concept of solar system is so huge that in front of the solar system, Earth will be assumed as a particle. So the basic concept behind doing this idealization is that what type of problem you want to address, based on that you make the assumption in that The fundamental assumption is particle. Okay, and we have at last a very important assumption called rigid body. What does rigid body denotes? Even the concept of rigid body is also an assumption. There is no such object in this world which is rigid in nature. Rigid means how much force you apply, you will get it back the same way. Correct? A combination of large number of particles in which all the particles remain at a fixed distance. Got it? So one particle, the other particle, they have already a fixed distance to call it as one specific sized matter. But as soon as some force is being applied on that object, the particles inside them will not have any change in the location of the particles inside the matter will not have any change in the location. So that means they remain unchanged with their distances between each other. That is actually called as rigid body. So that is actually not the truth, right? It is just an idealization. If you just hit the wall at one location, you may call out that wall is very rigid. It's not like that. Daily, if you hit it at the same location, there will be a chances at that location there may be some crack or a deformation. After some duration of time, I can expect there is a deformation or change in the distance between the two particles may happen in that location after some dosage of forces being given. So automatically even a wall, even a cement, concrete road, anything you take, that may not be a like rigid object. So they are going to be deformed, but just to solve the engineering problems, we call it as rigid body, and we assume that if a force is being applied, it will give the reaction to that as it is without making any change in the intensity of the force. Okay. So the next concept is called moment of a force about a point. Okay. So what is meant by moment of a force? You might have heard about this point. Some of them may be exposed to this topic and some may not be. So let us take it as a fresh topic. You have understood the concept of force. If you apply a load in a direction to any object, or else a force for any object being applied in one direction, you can expect the displacement of that object in the same direction. Correct? If I apply a force like this, I expect this to move in the same direction to relocate it. But moment is a concept. You will apply a load at one point or force at one point. In place of displacing the object, it rotates. The rotational effect being generated by the position of the force, that rotational effect is called as moment. Okay. So how do we take it with respect to an example? Look at here. Assume that this is my hand which is holding a rod or a pen, something like this. So I'm going to apply a force F here. So if I apply force F here, as per the concept of force, this pen has to come down, correct? If I apply force here, it has to come down. But I'm not allowing this pen to come down by holding it at another end, correct? I'll apply the force here, but I have holded the pen at one location. So what is the final effect created by that force F being applied at the dead end? It is going to make it rotate. That means this force F will make this beam to start bend or rotate in this direction. Correct? This is not the displacement. Displacement means along the line of action of force, the force has to change its position. Correct? I am expecting this applied force has to move the rod here. Correct? With respect to this, it has to come down if that is the actual concept of force. If it was only force, this beam was supposed to come down here for the applied force. But since we have the fixed end here, there is some fixity being holded in such a way that it is not allowing the other end to move down. There will be a rotational effect being caused, something like this. It is going to rotate. So that rotational effect being caused is called as moment. And how do we calculate it? The calculation is purely based on the formula called moment of a force about a point is equal to magnitude of the force multiplied by its perpendicular distance from the point. For example, if I ask you what is the moment at A created by force F, see, look at into the equation. to call a concept as moment, there are two fundamental requirements. The first one is there should be a force to generate the moment, and that force should have some perpendicular distance from where the moment has to be calculated. So if A is the location of the moment to be calculated, D designates the perpendicular distance. Okay. So this perpendicular distance is here, L, correct? If F is the force applied, MA is the point where you calculate the moment, then L designates the perpendicular distance. So multiplying the intensity of the force with the perpendicular distance, you will be obtaining something called moment at A, correct? So now let us just take one more example where I just want to calculate the moment at point B. What happens if I want to calculate the moment B with the same force F? Will the moment be same? No. Here it will be F into L. Assume that this is located at a distance of L by 2. In that case, what happens? Now if I want to calculate the moment at B point, it will be again the force and the perpendicular distance of the force applied from some point. So this is already B, let us take it as C. Okay. So we have force into L by 2. This is the moment created. So what does these two different points denotes you? That moment is purely dependent on force and it has its influence along with the direction, correct? So if at all the same force has been considered for different moments at different locations, the location is decided by the D value, so that even MA is different, MC is different, because the same force located at distance differently. This may be F into D1, this may be F into D2. So they both are different, even though the same force is being giving the chance of creating a moment at point A and B, but the distances matters for the magnitude of the moment. And what is the unit for this? You know that force may be Newton or kilonewton. A distance may be meter or millimeter. So altogether when you multiply, moment have the unit called kilonewton meter. So this concept is little bit like unique with respect to the previous whatever the concepts you have studied, and based on this the further 4 units problems will be solved, and the concept of moment needs to be convinced with respect to different locations first, and then further will be applied to the resolution of the forces. We have the last topic for the session, that couple and its characteristics. So since we have discussed about moment just now, in connection with moment, there is something called moment of a couple. So what happens in moment of a couple? Before going to the definition, let me first have a glance on how the moment is connected to couple. So for moment to generate, you need at least one fixed point, some distance should be there, and there will be only one force. Clear? So if you want to calculate the moment, you have made it as F into L. It's very clear. But here, we have two forces of equal intensity separated by a distinct distance, correct? Let us assume right now we have A as a distinct distance between the two forces, and these two forces must and should, they both should be of the same magnitude but in opposite direction. Just like a lady driving the car will hold a steering, the intensity of the force being applied from the one end will be same with the other hand, correct? So the force remains same. It is being separated by the diameter of the steering, and automatically you are expecting some rotational effect over here. Right now this direction is anti-clockwise negative because this is moving in this way and this direction. This is an anti-clockwise direction. So we call the moment generated by the couple to be negative. But what happens here? This distinct separation is there, P is there, this is upward direction, this is downward direction. This is tending to move the point this way and this to be in this way. This cyclic movement is called the moment of a couple, and the value for calculating moment of a couple will be intensity of the any one of the force, because they both are of same intensity. Best example, this lady can leave one hand and can move from another hand only, but even then you can expect the same rotation being happening. So among those two points, you can take any one force multiplied by the in between diameter here, distance here as A. So this is going to give you what is called as moment of a couple. So what happens here, this is a negative couple since it is going to generate a anti-clockwise rotation. If you compare here, this is going to be in upward direction like this will be in this direction. So totally the cyclic effect is clockwise. So in this case we call it as positive Q into B, correct? So this is positive QB will be the value of the moment of a couple, correct? So you people are very clear about if it is on an x-axis and y-axis. How about having an inclined distance? So this distance is designated here, so you are very sure and very clear. Assume that you are being given just something like this. You may have an assumption that, oh, maybe this is the distance, correct? No, this is not the distance. Between these two, exactly perpendicular distance is the distance we are supposed to take to calculate the couple, correct? So assume I have a force in third example here and here. Both have the intensity. This will be F and this is also F. But when we want to take the distance into consideration, you drop a perpendicular line from one force to another force, and that D will be the distance you are supposed to consider to calculate the moment generated by the couple. So what is the moment generated by the couple right now? This is going to move in this direction. This is going to move in this direction. So how do we tell it? Assume this pen itself is the distance separated and I have a force F being applied in this direction. Similarly, I am going to apply the force in this direction. So I am expecting this pen to rotate in clockwise direction, correct? So this clockwise rotation is going to decide the sign convention for the moment generated by the couple as positive, and we consider the magnitude of any one of the force generating the couple and the perpendicular distance between that. So altogether we'll be getting the moment of a couple. So when we come for the characteristics of the couple, right now with this discussion we can arrive at majorly three characteristics. The first one is, if you want to generate a couple, I should first and foremost have two forces of equal magnitude, first point, opposite in direction. See, if they both are in same direction, I cannot call it as couple, correct? They should be equal in magnitude, opposite in direction, that is the first point. They should be separated by some distance. See, assume that on a point you have two forces like this and like this. Will it generate a couple? No, no chance, because there is no perpendicular distance between this point and this point. Perpendicular distance should be either just like this also is also fine. Only a small distance is also fine. But even then there should be a perpendicular separation between the two equal and opposite forces to call it as a couple. So the first point is, a couple should have equal intensity opposite direction forces. Second point is, they has to be separated by some specific distance, or some like position should be different. That is second point. Third one is, this rotational effect whatever is caused, it is independent of the location of the couple. For example, assume that we are going to put it on a beam. Okay, so this is a beam which is being supported by two locations. I have two forces over here, one is here and one is here, and they are connected by one more small beam, and the height of this beam is D. Okay, this force is F1, this is also F1. Now the effect of this created on this point is obtained by F1 into D clockwise, correct? It is going to be clockwise. So it is positive moment of the couple. So whatever we have this effect, moment is an effect, rotational effect. That rotational effect remains unchanged irrespective of the position on the beam. For example, Here the beam is given and here two set of forces are given. But the effect caused by it, that rotational effect, it is same on all locations. So whichever the point you consider on the beam, that have the same intensity of this couple being created. So until we calculate it and convert it as a moment of a couple, only we have the task. Otherwise, we can just directly take it as it is a concentrated moment irrespective of the location on beam. That means on any of the object it is being placed. So that is about the characteristics of the couple. So here we are done with the present unit. So in this unit we have summarized the types of forces, and first we have analyzed how we are supposed to bifurcate an external force with an internal force, and we have studied the different characteristics of the force, and we have come across what is the concept of different force system. If we have a single force, how to deal with it with an object, and we have a set of forces being acted on an object and how we are supposed to deal with that. And we have three important principles called principles of transmissibility of forces, principle of physical independence of forces, and principle of superposition of forces. We have studied all the three based on the idealizations what we are supposed to make to understand the concept of engineering mechanics, where the basic idealizations were point force, a particle, a continuum, and a rigid body. These are the four fundamental assumptions we want to develop first, so that we can deliver the principle of these engineering mechanics in a convenient way. So we have studied all across that, and we have next studied about the moment of a force. So moment of a force was just a force into perpendicular distance, that is a rotational effect caused by a force being placed at some specific distance. And after that we have studied about the concept of couple and also its characteristics.